Do you know who we haven't heard from in a while? Kind of gone off the radar, beamed up somewhere perhaps. That would be Stacey Abrams, president of Earth, former governor of the state of Georgia in her mind and Hillary Clinton's mind. Stacey Abrams has gone away. In 2017, I got asked to lunch by a prominent progressive activist who I know in my community who is very good at her job. She puts points, and it is a she, puts points on the board for Democrats and has done a very good job organizing progressives in Georgia. And she wanted to go to lunch. She wanted to talk politics. We have a cordial relationship. She and her husband, super people. We just disagree on politics, but fine people. And when I got to lunch, her motive for asking me to go to lunch was to warn me about the state house leader in Georgia whose name was Stacey Abrams. And she advised me that Abrams was, in her mind back in 2017, grifting. Abrams would sell a bill of goods and had no deliverables. She was taking advantage of donors, bleeding donors dry for her own gain, and it would lead the Democrats to disaster. And this was a progressive activist telling me this. And she said that I should tell people on my side who would listen to me because they wouldn't listen to her, follow the money. Well, we followed the money. And it was exactly as this progressive activist had told me. It's an absolute grift. Fair Fight, Stacey Abrams' organization, to bring the fight to Georgia. The idea of Fair Fight Georgia was to organize the state of Georgia, do massive voter registration drives, pull out the Democratic vote and get people elected. Now, there's a catch, because Fair Fight could not engage itself in partisan voter registration as it was organized. See, I've mentioned this the other day, that 501c3s, nonprofits, cannot be partisan. Only the Republican and Democratic parties can engage in partisan voter registration drives. All the nonprofit voter registration groups have to do it on a bipartisan basis. So the way they get around that rule is they only go to areas where they're likely to find partisans that they want. So a Republican voter registration drive is going to go into the suburbs and largely white areas, and a Democratic voter registration drive is going to go into urban enclaves that are mostly non-white to try to avoid accidentally registering someone of the party they don't want. And Fair Fight, Lauren Grow-Wargo and Stacey Abrams got together. Lauren Grow-Wargo was the CEO, and they organized Fair Fight Georgia. That they were going to bring the fight to the Republicans. They were going to organize every county in the state of Georgia. And they raised a ton of money. In 2021, February 11th, 2021, Stacey Abrams and Lauren Grow-Wargo of Fair Fight wrote a piece in the New York Times, How to Turn Your Red State Blue. It may take 10 years, do it anyway. We met and became political partners a decade ago, uniting in a bid to stave off Democratic obsolescence and rebuild a party that would increase the clout of regular, struggling Georgians. Our mission was clear: organize people, help realize gains in their lives, win local races to build statewide competitiveness, and hold power accountable. But the challenge was how to do that in a state where many allies had retreated into glum predictions of defeat, where our opponents reveled in shellacking Democrats at the polls and in the state house. That's not all we had to contend with. There was a 2010 census undercount of people of color, a looming Republican gerrymander of legislative maps, and a new Democratic president midway into his first term confronting a holdover crisis from the previous Republican administration. Though little in modern American history compares with the malice and ineptitude of the botched pandemic response or the attempted insurrection at the Capitol, the dynamic of a potentially inaccurate census and imminent partisan redistricting in the same story facing Democrats in 2021 as it was in 2011. State leaders and activists we know across the country who face total or partial Republican control are wondering what path they should take in their own states now and deep into the next decade. Georgians deserve better, so we devised and began executing a 10-year plan to transform Georgia into a battleground state. Then they took credit for Joe Biden winning, and they claimed they were making all sorts of ground. In November of 2022, Brian Kemp destroyed everything Stacey Abrams had built. Brian Kemp, not the state party, not the Republican National Committee, Brian Kemp organized this incredible ground operation in Georgia. They organized every county. They were outspent by Stacey Abrams. They were out fundraised by Stacey Abrams. She had national exposure for 6 years against a Brian Kemp who had been vilified as Donald Trump's boy, only to have Donald Trump turn against him and campaign against him. And Brian Kemp's operation mopped the floor with Fair Fight Georgia as their mop. And what is the legacy of Fair Fight Georgia in Georgia? What is the legacy of it? Let me give you the numbers. Sent to me by a Democratic partisan, no less. $25 million in legal fees, $10 million to Stacey Abrams' campaign committee chair's law firm, $2.5 million in debt. And they still owe back pay to over 20 young activists who believed in Stacey Abrams' cause. Heck of a legacy. The 2020 election, Brian Kemp took Stacey Abrams' op-ed in the New York Times, How to Turn a Red State Blue, and pinned over it with a Sharpie, making it How to Turn a Blue State Red. Now, Democrats will say today, but the Senate, Ossoff and Warnock, and everybody knows Donald Trump got them elected, not Stacey Abrams. In fact, the Republicans won in 2020, went on to the runoff in 2021, and it was, 720-some thousand Republicans? No, 400-some-odd thousand Republicans. I used to know the number precisely. Refused to show back up. It was the Republicans who talked themselves out of voting. The chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, President Donald Trump told Republicans the runoff was going to be stolen just like the general election was stolen. The Republicans got us 2 Democrats in the Senate in Georgia, not Stacey Abrams. It's funny how everyone was willing to acknowledge that until today, and now suddenly they're like, oh no, Stacey Abrams got us 2 Democratic senators. No, the hell she did not. It was Donald Trump and the GOP who sabotaged themselves. The Republicans won every statewide race in Georgia and maintained control of the state House and the state Senate. And do you want the punchline? There's a man named Ed Setzler. He was in the state House. He's moved to the state Senate. He's the author of Georgia's 6-week fetal heartbeat ban. He was in a district that Abrams had won in 2018 and Hillary Clinton had won in 2016. And after he authored the fetal heartbeat ban, Fair Fight Georgia and every pro-choice, pro-abortion activist group in the country poured money in to beat him, and he beat them. That Fair Fight Georgia ground game was so good, they failed to oust a Republican from a Democratic-leaning seat. No one paid attention to that except me, I think. It was a clear indicator they weren't up to snuff. But my gosh, she got on the cover of Vanity Fair. She got the white guilt of liberals in the press who had given all their attention to Beto O'Rourke in 2018. She got to be the president of Earth on Star Trek. Now she's gone. And there's nothing but rubble in the wake. And you know, the bitter irony, Democratic partisan told me last night, is if she were to come back tomorrow, the Democrats would nominate her again. He said, she is our Trump. Was surprised he put it that way, but man, she became a national figure and national media darling. Brian Kemp will never get the credit he should get for the genius of his operation. He hit the ground running after being defined as Trump's guy in 2022, proved to be his own man. Donald Trump turned against him. He organized Kemp did every county in the state of Georgia and built this massive turnout machine. And with all of Stacey Abrams' attention, all of Stacey Abrams' money, all of the media attention and zeal to help her, Stacey Abrams became Humpty Dumpty. Fell off the wall, can't be put back together. That is a heck of a legacy. And all those young progressive activists who believed in her and her cause, gonna still be owed back pay. Well done, Democrats. You sure know how to pick them. Of course, I say that as a Republican, and look at us.